For the purpose of this video, I've pulled the color panel and swatches panel out and have it floating here next to my document, and I moved the timeline panel down below so I can zoom in and you can see things a little bit better. I also made the swatches panel a little bit larger than normal. At the bottom of the swatches panel we have our gradients that have been created, and there's some default ones here. What I'm going to do is just take the rectangle tool, and the first gradient is a linear gradient going from white to black. I'm going to select that as my fill, and then I'm going to draw a rectangle. So you can see how the gradient goes from white to black, and it didn't matter which direction I created this rectangle, it would flow in that direction. But we have underneath the free transform tool the gradient transform tool, and with that I can select this fill, and I have a center focal point. I could grab that and move that over so I could have it go much more white on the left, and so the black that's gradiating out to is actually over here, or I could bring that over to the left. I'm going to reposition it back in the center. We also have over here on the right hand side a little box with an arrow in it, and this allows me to set the width of the gradient. Everything to the left of that is going to be white, and everything to the right of it is going to be black. And I can also stretch that out beyond the borders of my fill area. And then there's a rotation point, so I can have this gradient go from top to bottom, or maybe I want the white on the right hand side, and I can also make it a diagonal at any degree, and we can slide this in as well. So that's how the gradient transform tool works with a linear gradient. So there's a couple more gradients in our swatches. I'm going to stretch this back out. Let's just go from a vertical gradient from top to bottom. So here's a gradient that goes from blue to white to kind of a gold back to white. And then there's a rainbow gradient here. Okay, so that's the gradients, the linear gradients that are part of our swatches. And I'll show you a little bit how you can create your own gradients. I'm going to go ahead and select everything and delete it. We also have some radial gradients, a gray, a red, a green, and a blue. And to best demonstrate those, I'm going to create a circle. And then I'm going to fill that. Let's choose the red gradient. And so we can see how in this radial gradient it starts with a color in the center focal point and moves out to another color. In this case it's going from red to black. Now with the free transform, or the gradient transform tool, I can select that fill, and I have the same thing as before. I can move this focal point. Gives a nice shadowing effect. But I can also bring this back roughly to the center. There's also the size box here. I can stretch that out. I have a second control here, which is this little circle with an arrow, in which I can change the radius of the radial gradient. And then of course, as we saw before, we can rotate this. So that is how we would use a radial gradient. And I can use a linear gradient or a radial gradient regardless of what shape I'm using. So let's look at how to create gradients. I'm going to go to the color panel, and here you can see how this radial gradient was created. There's a drop-down box up here that shows the type of color swatch we want to create. Solid color, linear gradient, radial gradient. We can also even do a bitmap fill. So here's a radial gradient, and over on the left-hand side is our color at our focal point, which in this case is red, and it's going to black. If I wanted to change this and make this, say, a yellow, I could click on this little, I call it a pencil tip marker, and I'm going to choose yellow, and now I've got a gradient that goes from yellow to black. And I'm going to come to the flyout menu and choose Add Swatch. And that is now part of my swatches added at the back end here. And I could select my gradient and choose that swatch. Let's create another one. So I can change the right color to something other than black. I'm going to come down and click on that pencil tip. Let's say I want to go from yellow to blue. I can add that to my swatches. And then finally I want to add another color here. If I just simply click on the bar, I can add more pencil tips. I'm going to add 5 of them. So let's have this color go to maybe more of a white. And we'll have this go to perhaps a green. And we'll have this go to a magenta. Now I can also adjust the location of these markers by sliding them. And I'm going to save that swatch. Let's go back to our swatches. So here's those swatches that I've added, those gradients, and I can select my fill and go over and choose a different gradient. And one last thing on the swatches, I mentioned this in the previous video, is there is a flyout for the swatches as well, and there's an opportunity here to save the colors. So if you're setting up gradients and solid colors swatches for a client, a particular client, and you wanted to save those, you can click Save Colors, and it will bring up a dialog box, and you can save those as a .clr for a color palette. So I might go back to the default Web 216 colors and create more gradients for a client. I can also start with a very basic palette of just black and white and a gradient from white to black, and that was by choosing the clear colors. I'm going to go back to the Web 216, and then if I want to bring up that palette that I saved earlier, I can simply go to Replace Colors and find my CLR file. And there are those gradients that we created.